everyone, welcome to this video. In this video I just want to show you how you can configure and use the Azure Information Protection scanner. Many people already know Azure Information Protection or Microsoft Information Protection from a user's perspective, seeing those labels, applying labels, protecting content, etc. Right now we also have the options, or either in preview or already general available, of using data classification at rest, and that's being used to scan and classify information which is stored on SharePoint Online, Exchange Online, and OneDrive for Business, for example. But Azure Information Protection already had a scanning engine, and it was used to scan on-premises repositories, SharePoint repositories, and file shares. So in this little video I'll show you how you can configure it, how it looks, and you'll hear things like nodes, clusters, content jobs, etc. So let's start and take a look. Okay, let's start first with some theory. What is the AIP scanner? The AIP scanner is a piece of software which uses the information protection scanner, information protection software, the client, to detect, classify, and protect information. This information is stored on either a file share, and NAS storage, or a SharePoint server. Over here we have the information from Microsoft itself, because why do it yourself if Microsoft does these great things themselves as well. So basically what we have, we've got a cluster which is going to contain several nodes, which are the servers which run the scanning software. These are going to use things which are called data, the data location, sorry, the repositories, that's the word I was looking for, the repositories, which can be configured to be scanned using different kinds of attributes. So you can run that server, you can run it in discovery mode, you can run it in enforcement mode, so it will enforce the labels. You have different options, and it does take some time to install it, but it's mostly very easy to understand and easy to use. So that's what I'm going to show you in this video, and yeah, let's take a look, shall we? Okay, now in order for your scanner to work, you have to start within Azure Information Protection. That's still the same portal you used when you were working with Azure Information Protection. These functions, the scanner functions, are not available within Microsoft 365. So you need to go to Azure and you're going to configure your scanner over there. There are some concepts which you need to know about. First of all, you have nodes, you have clusters, and you can have content scan jobs. Beginning with the nodes, these are the different servers you're using to scan content. So these are really the Windows servers running the scan software to scan your repositories. These nodes can be configured or need to be part of a specific cluster of servers. And it's this cluster which is used by the client on the service to connect to and to get the policy from. So the cluster is most important. It contains the worker nodes, basically, which are the scanners. And then we have the content scan jobs, and these are basically the repositories. And these work kind of like the same way we use labels when we are configuring them to enable them for users. We have policies and we have the repositories themselves. So let's take a look. Let me go to the content scan jobs. I already have one configured in my scanner, which this is my scan cluster. So my scanner listens to anything which happens within this cluster, and there I have one scan job. I can have multiple scan jobs, and let me just show you what can be configured within such a scan job. So first of all, it needs to have a name, of course, and there's some generic components to this scan job. First of all, the scheduling, the information types which need to be discovered. Then I can have a generic policy enforcement. By the way, this is also possible per repository, so we can have one in generic and then have one a little bit stronger based on a repository, for example, which are things like default labels, relabeling, etc. So this is the policy. And I can have very important things like preserving the metadata, last modified, modified by, etc. I can also exclude some different kinds of messages or file types, etc. If I'm happy with this, I can configure the repositories, and there's a little snag to that, because if you create a new scan job, and let me just show you, let's say I just want to add a new scan job, and let me call this one demo, and I want to configure my, well, I can't configure any repositories because it's locked. Well, the reason is you need to save the content scan job and then you can add your repositories. So let me just go back to my scan job over here. I've got 3 repositories configured. Basically because I'm running everything on the same server, I've got very lazily haven't included any HTTPS, so it's just HTTP in my case. Just 2 locations, sites within SharePoint 2019, I think it is, and I've also got my SharePoint or my document storage within my just file share. File share needs UNC, and of course SharePoint requires HTTP or HTTPS in this case, or well, HTTP or HTTPS. So that's how you can configure those policies to contain repositories. Let me just open this one. Over here again you'll see things like enforcement. I can have it on in off, which is basically more a discovery mode. I can have a label based on content, so do a content scan, have a default label based on the things the scanner finds, etc. I can even allow for a label downgrade if I wanted to. So these are some of the settings configured using the policy and using the repository policy. So these aren't the generic ones, these are based on this policy. Okay, when I've got this one up and running, I've got my content scan job, and normally when you create a new scan job, it isn't active until it's being added to a cluster. And when you add it to a cluster, then it becomes available to your scanners, and then you can either upgrade your scanner or install your scanner, and it will download the policies from this cluster. So that's basically how it works using those content scan jobs. Okay, let's say you want to install or upgrade the information protection scanner. Well, in my case, I'll just show you how you can upgrade it, because I already have one up and running. Installing the scanner isn't a very big deal. You need to know that you need to first of all install the AIP client or the sensitivity label client, the unified labeling environment, and then that client also comes with all the PowerShell commandlets you can use to install the scanner. So let's take a look. For example, if you want to install the scanner using PowerShell, you go to PowerShell and you basically just use this commandlet, install AIP scanner. You will need to have service credentials, which also need to have access to your SQL Server environment, of course, because it's going to create those SQL Server databases to store the policy. So be careful with that. It will also create the service for you, and then you can start running your AIP scanner. In my case, I already have one, so I've installed the new client. I've upgraded it to the new client, and now I want to upgrade the scanner. How does that work? Well, first things first, and one of the first things I do need to do is stop the scanner. Yeah, that's it. I really need to stop the scanner over here. Then I can upgrade my scanner. It's relatively simple. I just say update scanner minus cluster. I really need to again create that link to my cluster in the portal, and my scanner is called Azure IP Scan Cluster. I can of course have different names, but these are the ones I use. And there it goes, updated successfully. Cluster is set to. This normally takes a bit more time. In my case it was relatively easy. Let me just start up the service again. There it is. If I want to well, change the cluster for this server to another cluster, I can also use this PowerShell command. So let me just see what the diagnostics say. And I guess everything is okay. Yep, there it is. Everything is okay. I'm now upgraded to the new Azure Information Protection version. One of the more complex items for the scanner is how the scanner uses to authenticate you through Azure Information Protection. If you look at Azure Information Protection itself, either when using sensitivity labels within Office or just using the client, it always uses the credentials of the user. The scanner won't be able to do that because it's running on the background as a service. So it needs to be authenticated in Azure itself. And for this to work, you will need an app registration. I won't be going through all the steps for this. It's very easy, and I'll just include the link to the documentation as well. But just a couple of pointers. First of all, when you've created the app registration, and this is my app registration over here, you will get an app ID. Copy that to Notepad or whatever, because that's one of the things you're going to need to register your AIP scanner. The second one is you need an app secret, and that's over here. You create a new app secret. It's going to be have a value which is blanked out over here, and this is what you also will be needing to have your scanner working. The third is you will need API permissions, which are over here. So you will need to have specific configured permissions for your user to work with Azure Information Protection, your scanner. These are the Right Management Service, which needs Content Dedicated Reader and Content Dedicated Writer. And for Microsoft Information Protection, you will need the Tenant Read permission. You can grant these simply by having an add permission. Then, for example, going to Azure Rights Management, application permission, and there they are. No problem. Please do note that when you add these as a permission level for this app registration, it will say not granted over here. In order to grant them, you'll have to explicitly grant them over here. Okay, now we have an app ID, we have an app secret, we have permissions, and now we can use that information within the scanner. Okay, now you've either installed or upgraded your scanner. You will need to allow the scanner to work in the background, and that's where the app secret, the app ID come into place. I won't be showing you the entire commandlet or how it works due to the sensitive nature of the information in the PowerShell commandlet, but this is the commandlet you need to use. Set AIP authentication. You configure the app ID, you configure the app secret, you also need your tenant ID, and that's going to be able to allow the scanner to work. You also need a dedicated user, and there you give the information you add there is a user within your Azure AD, which is allowed to work with Azure Information Protection. So that's an account, a real account, a service account, which has the Azure Information Protection license in order to work. The last attribute you need over there is the on behalf of, and over there you enter the credentials. Right now it's using a variable to set those credentials. This is the service account which is running on the machine itself. So this is a In my case, it's a directory account, an Active Directory account for this machine, for the service account. This is basically the account which runs the service on the machine. When successful, the service can start. It can connect to Azure Information Protection, it can read the policies, and your scans can start. Okay, let's take a look at some of the components which are available on the Windows Server when the scanner is up and running. Well, first of all, we've got the service, which is over here. This is an Azure Information Protection scanner service, which will be installed automatically when you install the Azure Information Protection scanner. It won't be installed when you install the client, which you also need to do, of course, in order to get it up and running. It will be installed when you configure the scanner. It's, in my case, configured to use a service account, and this is the service account which also is used when we are granting the permissions for the scanner to run in the background. So this is my local account. It's running now. If you need to upgrade the client or you need to upgrade the scanner itself, then you will need to stop this service. That's a very important thing. One other thing which you get when you are running the scanner, you get a SQL database. This database contains the policies, the settings, which the scanner gets from the Azure Information Protection portal. Over here I have my SQL environment. It's a local environment. I don't have a separate SQL environment for this. But over here we have the databases, and I've got 3 policies which I configured and connected to this scanner. Right now I'm just using one, by the way, and this is this one, and this is the database which contains that policy. Another component running on the server is needed for configuration sometimes for the scanner is PowerShell. You can use PowerShell, for example, to get the status of the scanner, for example. So let me get the scanner status, and it says, well, this is my node and it's idle, which is correct because I haven't started it. If I want to check if everything is okay with the scanner, I can start a diagnostics, for example, like this. And this will check if any connections are okay, if there's no problem with the policies, etc. And right now there isn't any problem. You also see a log file location, and this is very, very relevant because the log file location has several components also on the server. First of all, we have the logs themselves, which are over here. And you can use this to troubleshoot, to see if there's any problems with the scanner, etc. Another important thing is the scanner directory, because that contains the reports. And these are the reports which are well, formed basically when the scanner runs. And over here I have a summary report, for example, which states, well, I've got 3 repositories, I've got 100 files. Well, there's really no action being taken by the scanner. That's because of the policy which is active right now, and scanning it just took 65 seconds, sorry about it. So this is the log file. This is very, very important. As you see, it contains of several zip files, which means every time you create or run a scan, a new log file is created, and the older ones are stored very neatly in a zip file. So this is basically how it works under the hood. Okay, that's it. Configuring the scanner, creating the scanner, some thoughts to end this chat. First of all, you've got nodes. Those are servers. There you install the client, and that's where the scanning is being done. The scanning is being coordinated using the AIP portal. That's where you create the content scan jobs, which are added to a cluster. And the cluster is where the client connects to when it needs to start scanning. Scanning can be done either manually and automatically, either in discovery mode or in enforcement mode, and it's a very nice way to scan your your current on-premises environment. So I hope this was an enjoyable video, and stay tuned for more content. Thank you.